You're welcome back. And my guest for this special edition asking what we all can do to assist the police to maintain and sustain the zeal for law and order for our own security. ACP Kwesi Ofori, he's the Acting Director General of the Public Affairs Ghana Police Service. Ace Ankomah is lawyer. Sheikh Armiao Shaibu is spokesperson for the National Chief Imam, and he's the acting chairman of CODEO, Coalition of Domestic Election Observers. And Reverend Professor J. Kwabna Samoa Jedu is Minister, Methodist Church Ghana, and President, Trinity Theological Seminary, Legon. Just a couple of your messages, and then we get Ace to get into to tell us where we are and what is it that we do in religion that could have criminal consequences. This one from Yakubu Ibn Chambers. He says, first of all, the Ghana Police Service has proven beyond doubt that Ghana has the men to do the job. The Ghana Police Service has been a sleeping giant for far too long. Therefore, the need to bring men like Dr. Dampare to put a pep in the step. The Ghana Police Service knows its limits in its line of duty. But if an MP dares urinate on the street, he will be gladly arrested. Okay, Yakubu Ibn Chambers, thank you for that message. And then Baba Chairman in Tamale, you say, I agree completely with your panel, most especially Ace Ankomah. What's refreshing to have him on your show. Ghana has all the fine laws to guide and protect all of us. The problem, however, is the type of leaders and their zeal to put these fine laws to the least test. A case in study is the current IGP. This is from Rex J. He says, kindly ask Mr. Kwesi Ofori, is it now that they, the police service, are hearing about traffic offenses, tickets, and the revenue it can generate for the police service? This is common knowledge about policing in the Western world. Ghana police just love taking bribe, period. Okay, so they've been talking about this for quite a while, but it does appear that the financial muscle, what they need, and the laws to make it operational has been the problem over the years. The first time I heard about it, it's been almost like a decade since I heard the police saying that they wanted to do this. This is proverbial Twitter. Kofi Amwa says, our problem is embedded in the capricious exercise of discretion. Our laws have permitted people with discretionary powers, and that will make them powerful. That is why morality will always rank higher than legality for me. Who can stand the court of public opinion? Thank you. General Sikutu says the speaker must be reminded, or better still, pinch himself that he ain't the president and Ghana is not running a parliamentary supremacy system. Sita Muhammad says, now the Ghana Police Service is on the verge of couching a new name and identity for itself, thanks to the new IGP and the appointing authority as well. But members of the service, especially those at the MTTD, should help with the new branding. I suppose you understand what he means by they should help, the MTTD. I think sometimes they are the ones who like to take a lot of the money in the public. Digura Batino says, aside the politicization, unqualified and dysfunctional appointment of persons based on favoritism, families, and friends. When our political leaders appoint people who do not merit and are ineffective, it makes our institutions fragile because they are only satisfying something. You don't say it. Collins Little Tete says, your regular thief will not be the one in mask with a gun pointing at you to bring your valuables. It will be intellectuals in suit and tie who are well vexed in an area of study to rob you. The police must go after all of them. The system has to work, and for which it has to be fixed. Both in the developed and developing countries, lawlessness is punished, but questioning is discriminatory nature. And for the police, they collect the fines for themselves because they don't trust the next person. Prince Henry in Koforidua says, to be sincere, Dr. Akufo Dampare has brought some sanity into the Ghana Police Service and the country at large entirely. IGP Dampare should visit the beating of his own colleague at the seat of the presidency, DSP Nanka Bruce, and let the culprits face the law of Ghana. Papa J. Jr. Elikem says the police administration is actually doing what is expected of them. The big test, however, will be how they will handle politicians who still drive in the middle of the road with sirens blaring. Well, we have been given an example of what is going to happen to those who sit in those V8s and do misconduct themselves. I read this final one. It says, great conversation today. The IGP may be willing to make a change, but we also need to safeguard the process and ensure that his objectives reflect across the country. I am particularly interested in what his regime intends to do to ensure that other police officers across the country are in tune with his vision. Here, I suggest that they should be resourced. It is about time the IGP invests heavily in technology through the procurement of body cams to fight crime. It is only when police officers are aware that they are being watched that we can derive anything meaningful from the IGP's vision. The police cameras on the roads, police body cams with strict compliance to ensure that all field officers switch on their cams when on duty. We can do this. This will also prevent the so-called powerful in society who commit crimes but turn around to blame the officers instead. One man may have the vision, but how can he ensure that everyone else falls in line with his vision? And that was a long one from Togbi. Togbi, the name just vanished. Thank you so very much. Now, Ace, what is it that the churches, the mosque, the traditional people will do that will take them beyond their comfort zone and put them in the way of trouble? And that's also warranted the IGP beginning this kind of meetings with them.
Well, there's a statement that when it's made, it gets the hackles of religious people up. But it's the truth, and it must be said that Ghana is a secular state. Ghana is not a Christian state. Ghana is not a Muslim state. It is not a state of traditional religion. Ghana is a secular state. It's a secular republic. The constitution is secular. The institutions are secular in nature. Now, this does not mean that I'm saying Ghana is an atheist state or is a nation of agnostics. If you say a state is secular, it means that there are four things that happen in the state. One, it guarantees individual and corporate freedom of religion. And so to the extent that I have the freedom to be a Christian, and you have the freedom not to believe in anything at all, means that the state is secular. 2, it deals with the individual as a citizen, irrespective of religion. And so even when I'm arrested, it is not because I belong, I don't go free because I'm a Muslim or a Christian. I'm dealt with as an individual, and my religious views do not matter. 3, we are not constitutionally connected to a particular religion. And indeed, our Constitution says in Article 65 that Parliament has no power to declare a state religion, that we should all belong to one religion. It is clear. So that we are not constitutionally connected with a particular religion. Neither does the state, that's 4, that seek to either promote or interfere with religion. We won't promote one religion over the other. We won't interfere with your religious rights, as long as you keep within the bounds. And there's this case that went to the Supreme Court, Bonfe versus Attorney General, who went to the Supreme Court to say that because the state is secular, the government is wrong to be engaged in the Hajj and in the National Cathedral. And the Supreme Court...
It's very recent.
Recent.
The CPP's Kwabena Bonfe.
Kwabena Bonfe,
okay.
It was the Attorney General. The Supreme Court said, well, look, the features of a secular state is that there is religious pluralism and diversity. You are entitled to believe in what you want to believe. So nobody discriminates against anyone where that is concerned. But within the context of the secular state, the Constitution must be understood to allow or even encourage state recognition and accommodation of religion and religious identity. You can be whoever you are. You don't have to believe in what I believe in before you're a citizen. It is all because the state is secular. And so the state being secular also does not mean that the state cannot assist or cooperate. Now, whatever conclusion the court came to, the critical issue was this. The Supreme Court affirmed that the state of Ghana is a secular state. I'll also refer you to another Supreme Court case, Warren and Okujeto, where Akamba JSC said that it is important to remember that our courts are not ecclesiastical courts rendering divine justice, but ordinary secular courts delivering justice according to mortal laws. So when we go to court, our dispute is not resolved by the Bible or the Quran or some other holy script. It is resolved by man-made laws because we are a secular republic. Or some Penanco versus Latte, where Archer J, as he then was, said that there is no established religion in Ghana recognized as the religion of state. The courts in Ghana apply the laws of the country and not what the Christian Bible teaches. So we might resolve our dispute privately by the Bible or the Quran. But if the matter goes to court, nobody is going to rely on the Bible or Quran. I did say at the presentation that I think the only time God features is when we swear on the Bible or on the Quran and then proceed to lie immediately afterwards. When we are sworn to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, the next sentence is, even about our names, is sometimes a lie. Right?
So sorry about this slight distraction, but judges, police who are applying the law may interpret and apply the law from their experience and encounter with the Bible, the Quran, and so on.
Yeah, there could be a value system that would come into place. But ultimately, what determines our dispute will not be the Bible. And if a judge actually says, I'm giving this decision on the basis of the Bible, that decision, in fact, you don't have to appeal. It will go out by certiorari. Right. Because he has no power to apply the Bible or any other holy script.
By certiorari means to be quashed, it will be thrown away.
Removed, erased, expelled. Okay. It won't exist anymore. In fact, if it exists, it will be an example of how not to behave as a judge. And so our disputes are resolved by man-made laws made by Parliament. And laws as the courts may make it, the evolution of laws, customary law, common law, etc., etc. So there's no established state religion. And indeed, I'm not only talking about Christianity. There's a 1976 decision by Ando J, Obing alias Nkobi Ahene versus Jabba. It says, in a court of law, it is difficult, if not impossible, to adduce legally acceptable evidence to establish the efficacy of fetish. But we can't be talking about fetish in our courts. We are dealing with man-made laws. So as you see, I said some for the Christian religion, and I said some that the same thing. We can't determine what happens in court by fetish. The court says you can go and resolve your fetish things outside this court. But when you come into this court, we will only go by what the law says. So having said that, we must then understand that we don't live on our own. We don't live by laws that we have made unto ourselves. We live by man-made laws.
Right.
Now, I won't say that any of these that I'm going to describe was made with religion in mind. It's been made because we are a secular state. It's been made with all of us in mind. If you fall in on account of your religious belief or practice, the law will not say that because it is you and you were praying, you are allowed to disturb your neighbor. If you look through our constitution, the freedom of religion is upheld several times. I don't need to go through it. But there are also clear limitations that they will not allow you, even on a religious platform, to propagate a theory or principle against the statehood of Ghana. And so you cannot mount your platform every time and deprecate the Republic of Ghana. It's a useless state. We also, I don't know what else to say. But the Constitution says you can't do that. And Parliament can actually pass law to restrain you. It is not targeted at a pastor. But if a pastor decides that his propaganda, his message is to deprecate the state of Ghana, the Constitution will stop you because it is a secular state. Now, so I could bore you with all the constitutional provisions, but there you see it. You have the right to religion, but subject to the provisions of the Constitution, Article 26, 35, that the state itself will promote the integration of the people and no prejudice on grounds of religion, creed, or other beliefs. So your religious right is protected. But in the same way, there are restrictions, and that is where I want to deal with it in the next couple of minutes.
Okay.
One, a pastor or priest is not a public officer. But if that person is performing functions in respect of issues like notification of marriage, solemnization of marriage, that person, that minister of religion, becomes a public officer.
Okay.
So when you go into the mosque and the marriage is being conducted, for the purposes of that marriage, the minister of religion, the person who stands in as the minister of religion or ecclesiastical officer, is a public officer. Now, if that person is a public officer, then there are certain protections. One, assault of a public officer. So while the man is conducting the wedding, you go in there and obstruct the wedding, or to molest him, resist him, use threatening, abusive, or insulting language while he's conducting the wedding. It is not just normal assault. It is assault of a public officer. It is as if you did that to a policeman. Because once they are performing those rights, we give them the status of a public officer. Two, so if you fabricate evidence with intention to mislead a public officer, that in going to the priest, you forge your divorce papers. It's fabricating evidence with intent to mislead a public officer. You go to jail. Corruption of a public officer. What has become topical recently? Deceit of public officer. And let me explain this.
Right.
The lady was sentenced to 2 jail terms. One was Section 208, publishing false news.
That's right.
One was deceiving a public officer, because the minute she appeared before the police and made the kidnapping allegation, it was deceit of public officer. So while she was jailed for 2 years for the false news, she was jailed for 6 years for deceiving the public officer.
Which is a minimum for deceiving.
Yes, which is a minimum for deceiving. So if you are going to see a pastor for the purposes of marriage, and you go and sit before him and lie, you could go to jail for 6 years. Because whilst the pastor is performing that function, the pastor is a public officer. And in no other function.
So the pastor has become the property of the state.
Absolutely, because the pastor has decided to exercise those powers in performing certain rights. The pastor has become a public officer. Outside that, he's not. And of course, accepting or giving a bribe to influence a public officer. But there are also certain offenses that can be committed only by public officers. For example, falsifying books. So if the pastor sits down and for the purposes of a marriage, falsifies a marriage certificate, offense, because for that purposes he's a public officer. Or falsely pretending to be a public officer, corruption, willful oppression, which is the abuse or causing injury of the public, extortion, issuing false certificates, destruction of official documents. All of those are offenses that a pastor may commit simply because the pastor is a public officer. So the pastor has certain protections if he's working as a public officer.
What official document will a pastor be destroying to get him into trouble?
Similar to marriage certificate. The man comes and says, Charlie, yesterday the marriage, I don't like it again. Let's burn the certificate. And the pastor, let's shred it. You're in trouble.
Okay.
The death certificate, if they come to you and help, let's destroy the death certificate so we can claim some insurance. The pastor is in trouble as a public officer. So you see that the law is not going after pastors.
So will the pastor get the same protections that a public officer gets?
If the pastor is working in the capacities that I mentioned, the capacities of notification of an intended marriage, publication of the banns, solemnization of marriage, in respect of making or keeping a register or certificate of marriage, birth, baptism, death, or burial. Marriage, birth, baptism, death, or burial.
And almost a similar thing applies in Islamic marriages.
Absolutely, the same thing. To the extent that the minister of religion, so maybe it's better we use the term minister of religion, or ecclesiastical officer of any denomination, is performing any of these functions, that person is a public officer. And all the public officer related offenses apply to that person as though the person was a public officer.
Okay.
Now, the one that, of course, leads to most of the thing is what I call noise crimes. Once again, nobody sat down and said that churches cannot make noise. There are laws against noise making, period. And if you are arrested for noise making, the fact that you are a church is not a defense. Neither will that send you to jail. What might send you to jail is the noise making.
Okay.
So, for example, playing any instrument or making loud noise within 300 yards of a place where a court is sitting is an offense. So if you are building your church, check whether there's a court near you. Because the day you decide to have a Wednesday afternoon meeting while the court is sitting, if you play any instrument or make loud noise, you have committed an offense. It's the same as somebody deciding to organize a party at midday while the court is sitting. The same law will apply because the state is secular. So it will arrest the party person, it will arrest the noise, as long as it is noise made by the pastor or priest or church, as long as it is made within 300 yards of a court sitting. But this is the other one. Making loud or unseemly noise that disturbs the peace or annoys or disturbs another person. So let's even take the court out of the situation. And so someone was telling a story that the church said they were building a mission house next to him. Okay. By the time he realized, they had started prayer meetings, and by the time he realized it was a full-blown church going on next door with the, as charismatics, with the noise. Now, if you make loud or unseemly noise that disturbs the peace, you have committed a crime. It doesn't say if the church makes, if anybody makes. So if I decide to have a party and bring out all the speakers that are possible under the sun and make that noise, I have committed that offense. Just as much as the church. Just as much as the mosque at 4 a.m. or the church at 5:30 a.m. or the itinerant preacher who decides to preach in my area at 5 a.m. So I went to preach with him. I took my car and I put my hand on the horn while he preached. Don't follow me, I'm not a good example, but that's at 5 a.m.
No, I can't believe a church boy like you would do what you just said.
I did it. Now, I'll tell you why. The prompts in this, and I've said it there. You see, I think that the days of ignorance, we have been forgiven of them. But these things need to have done some before. The dawn broadcast at 5 a.m. With a megaphone, screaming at people to repent of their sins. And so there was a lady who also decided that she would preach the same sermon just around my house. Now I'm in a corner plot, so she walked to one gate and the other. And I would have and I'm from home already. And I'm lying in bed and I'm like, what do I do? I see young people are laughing at the back. But just when I was about to make the noise, then I saw something told me, you deserve it. You too, you have done so before. Samson, there's nothing worse than there's a crusade going on near your house. And the song that is being used to disturb you is a song you wrote. And it's not even being played well.
Interesting.
So I've learned that, look.
So some of the pastors are already beginning to speak and say, IGP is targeting us.
No, it is the law that has not been applied in the country. And he's saying, I'm applying it across board because this is a secular state. But he's saying, churches, mosques, you are kind of in the front line. So I'm coming not only after you, but after the disco session, but after that. You see, if you want, you go to the church, Samson, it's 15 people in the church. But the loudspeakers are outside. There was one near my house again. It's as if, God and heaven knowing what I've done. Target me, pa. There was this church. And that's when they are setting up. Then a certain evangelist who is not a member of the church will pick the mic whilst they are setting up. So while the drummer is doing tom, 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 or while they tune his tom, he is preaching. And all he's preaching is about those of you who live in those houses who will give yourself to God. And he will curse you, condemn you to hell, and everything. Loud noise. That is what the law is against. And it's not because you are a church.
Right.
Simply, you are not allowed to make loud and unseemly noise anywhere.
Right.
And but that is also, there's a civil aspect of it.
Okay.
Civil nuisance.
Right.
The criminal part goes to Chief Kwesifori and his people. I can decide not to go to them at all. I can decide to sue you. Because there's a tort called nuisance. Now, this is the tort of nuisance. You are not allowed to use your land in a manner that wrongfully interferes with another's enjoyment of land. So you have your land. You can't use it in a way that disturbs the other person. So it could be vibrations.
Right.
It could be noise. It could be smells. It could be fumes. You cannot keep rubbish in your house to smell and send flies to the next place. You can't be burning rubbish in your house and polluting my house with smoke. It is nuisance. And this has nothing to do with the church.
So somebody is saying Ace is just speaking my case for me.
Well, so now
the burning that goes on in homes, residential areas, in prime areas, burning that goes on during the day, even in the night, even when it is raining, you are burning.
Yeah. Well, it's all a crime. And if I don't want to go and chase the police, I can sue you. And the court will injunct you. The court will say, damages for what you have done in the past.
All right.
And in future, injunction. Don't do it again. If you like, do it again.
All right.
Chief and his people will come and pick you for contempt of court. And you will go to jail. These are laws that exist. Nobody is doing them now. They exist. We all should have
they've already started, let's get to that part. They've already started talking that the IGP is saying they shouldn't, give prophecies, that he's saying they are issuing threat and all of this.
I'll deal with the prophecy. Let me make a quick branch into another thing.
Okay.
Now, the church or mosque premise is a public place.
Okay.
So let me explain this to my friends, the pastors. It might be your hall in your house or even your bedroom. But the minute you begin to use it for a religious meeting or religious assembly, it becomes a public place. And so then the law on public places apply there. So the church room, the mosque room are public places. Whether it belongs to the church or not, it's a public place. It might be a classroom, but once you use it for a religious meeting, it becomes a public place. And it might be your hall. So maybe when you start the prayer cell, be careful. It becomes a public place. It is a crime to behave irreverently or indecently in a chapel, church, mosque, or other place for religious worship.
I didn't know about this one.
Yes.
Behave irreverently.
Irreverently. Section 296 of the Criminal Offences Act. You can check it. So if my church believes that prayer is in reverence to God, silent, and you come in with noise, you could go to jail. You could be fined because you are behaving irreverently. If you decide to sing indecent songs in church, so while the church is singing a song, you are singing a university version of it. Certain university hall version of it.
Yes.
It's a crime.
Okay.
It is also a crime to disturb or molest a minister of religion while celebrating a religious rite or office in public place. So now we have even left public officer. So if a pastor is preaching and you decide to get up and argue with him, in the church.
There are these protections.
It's in the law. These laws have been there before independence and were reaffirmed in 1960. The thing is that they sit on the books. We never implement them. We never apply them. And so people do not know they exist. Well, I'm giving you the opportunity. I said the days of ignorance.
So those of you who enter into a worship place to cause a fight and all of that.
There. The law will get to you. But then let's get to the prophecies of harm or danger.
Right.
There's no provision of the law which says you can't prophesy.
Okay.
Because the law is not targeting prophecies. But this is what the law says. And I want you to pay attention to this very carefully. It says, if you publish or reproduce a statement, it wasn't just statement, that says rumor or report, which is likely to do one or two of two things. Likely to cause fear and alarm to the public. Or two, disturb the peace. That's just it. You publish a statement which is likely to cause fear and alarm to the public or disturb the peace.
Publish means I write it or what?
No, disturb alarm to the public. Remember that the church room is a public place now.
Yeah, but where it says publish means I write it.
Any conveyance of it, any communication. If it is in your head, it is not published. Publication at law essentially deals with communication.
When it can be heard.
When it can be heard. Where it can be sensed by any of our senses. I'll get to the senses part of it. And so if you publish or reproduce a statement that is likely to either cause fear or panic to the public or either disturb the public peace, knowing or having reason to believe that the statement is false. Knowing or having reason to believe that the statement is false. I say, but it's a prophecy. A prophecy is true. Hold on. The definition and explanation of false here is not really whether it's true or a lie. It says to prove that your statement is not false, not that it's true, it's not false, you must prove that prior to publishing it, prior to communicating it, you took reasonable measures to verify its accuracy. Now,
but the prophecy is for the future.
Then you're in trouble. Then nobody's saying that don't have the prophecy. Be careful how you communicate it. And so if you have a prophecy that there's going to be an earthquake and half of Ghana, maybe that's not true. Half of Ghana is going to be affected by an earthquake. They said, take your time. You have received it, nobody doubts it. How are you going to communicate it? Is it on your church on 31st night, blaring into microphones and loudspeakers? Or are you going to call Chief and say, Chief, what will the government do about it? I'm here to affect this town. So the government can decide that let's deal with the seismic people. Maybe this is spiritual, but it makes me a boom. Do you see any seismic signs that leads that this is going to happen? So if that is going to happen, what do we do? Do we evacuate people on the due date, etc., etc.? That won't get you into trouble. But if you decide to publish it, communicate it, when that report is likely to cause fear and alarm or disturb the public peace.
It shouldn't cause the fear and alarm.
Even it's likely. It's not that it has caused it. It has the potential to.
What kind of crime is this? Likely.
There are many likely offenses.
I've done the thing, it's likely to.
I'll tell you,
it hasn't done it.
The root of this law was this situation. We are all sitting in this room. Then I shout, bomb. And then we run out and people get injured. He said, wait, we're making that statement, I shall know that it is likely to cause fear and alarm, which would then mean that we'll all run out of this place and somebody's likely to get hurt.
That's right.
So that, I've done them seti thing. It's a crime. So doing seti is a crime. Just like shine body. I'll show you that one as well. Right? You know that. So if you do this seti thing, and so it translates into this, that you say this person is going to die. Death is not good news. I mean, even the Lord Christ was worried about going to die, although he came to die. Right? And so if you do that, then the law will say, well, how were you able to verify
the accuracy?
The veracity, accuracy. Now, in court, it says you must prove. Proof by the Evidence Act means testimony writings, material objects, or other things presented to the senses. presented to the senses. And so if it cannot be seen, heard, smelled, tasted, or touched, it's not evidence unless it's opinion evidence. And so with due respect, Prophet, it's not evidence in court.
So and by the time you are saying that,
you are in jail. So receive the message, but how you deal with it, how you handle it.
But the Constitution says I have a right to a religion of my choice and to manifest it.
But it also says that subject to the terms of this Constitution and subject to laws for public order. So your right is not absolute. There's no absolute right in the Constitution. And so this is saying you may receive your prophecy or word of wisdom or word of knowledge. But how you communicate it is what the state says be careful about. Once again, it is not your prophecy.
Right.
It is the communication of it.
Right.
And so if you decide to communicate it, publish it, so that the public becomes aware of it.
All right.
Then you could get into this trouble. Now, in terms of evidence, there's a very interesting case, Abochi and Numu, where the defendant called the plaintiff a witch. And the plaintiff sued. And when the case came to court, the defendant said, I want to call a fetish priest to come and prove that the plaintiff is a witch. My defense is justification, but my proof of the evidence of the justification must be provided by a fetish priest. The court held that they were wrong. It says that the law will not recognize the performance of rituals as a proper method of investigation.
Okay.
And that when the opinion of a witness is founded on nothing that is recognizable as evidence, it is worse than irrelevant. The traditional mode intended to be adopted by the fetish priest to prove that the plaintiff is a witch should not be countenanced by the court. The fetish priest cannot be a competent witness. So even a fetish priest who can come to court will not be deemed a competent witness, how are you going to call the Holy Ghost in evidence?
Pause here for me, and I'm getting tons of messages that are flying in, and the former chairman of the NMC says I should thank you for bringing up some of these issues, particularly the burning of rubbish in communities. He says it's a major issue. I'm talking about Kwesi Jana painting. Now, let me come to Prof and Shay. And Prof, we have already begun to receive reactions from some of the quote-unquote errant preachers. And they are saying that the IGP has issued a directive to them. I don't see a directive though. And some of them are actually issuing things that sound like a threat to him. Is it the case that many of our preachers don't know what we have in our laws about noise, about bringing people in a camp that they are whatever and they are being flogged and so on, and this issue of the prophecy that is broadcast? Somebody is on the back of the steering wheel driving, he's a popular person, the next thing he hears on the radio is his name and being told that he's going to get an accident, and that moment only God knows what may happen to him. What do you say?
What do I say? Thank you very much. And, perhaps we should have brought the person who made the prophecy to the studio. As you know, I also teach in a seminary.
Right.
And I'm the president of a seminary. And one of the courses that we offer in this seminary is a course called Law for Pastoral Ministry. And the reason why we offer that course is so that we can educate those training for ministry in some of the laws and provisions of our Constitution that Ace has spoken about so loudly and so clearly. In other words, at least the historic mission denominations do recognize that you cannot be lawless when it comes to the practice of religion and faith. And so the people who pass through our hands are trained to be law-abiding when it comes to the exercise of their public functions as ministers. Now, the question that I've been asking myself in these past couple of years is, why has the prophetic suddenly become the most important thing in Christianity and also in our politics? I mean, we've had Christianity in this country for 200 years and over. And suddenly, within the last 30 years or so, everybody is claiming to be a prophet of one sort or another. It ties in with the issue that we were discussing earlier on, Ace was talking about earlier on, about noise pollution and things like that. In the first place, who determines where a church is, a church building placed? Mm-hmm. It goes back to the institutions of state. Who has stopped the police, for example, from acting against noise? Before I come back to the prophetic element of it, the economic costs of these things to our country can also be very, very high. I have a friend who established a savings and loans business. And this individual purposely cited the business in the market so that he can give small loans to ordinary market women. The business collapsed. Why? Because these market women will take the loans, shut up the shop, and go to church on a weekday. And these things are all over the country. Of course, the state cannot stop people from going to church on a weekday. But the institutions for which these people work can keep an eye on them, that they are fulfilling the obligations for which they are paid. So I think in as much as we need to call out these prophetic figures for causing fear and panic and chaos in society, we also need to exercise our civil duty in calling people to order. Ace talked about behaving irreverently in a place of worship. I will include with prophecy kicking people, sometimes stripping them naked, and stuff like that.
We have seen people step on the tummy of a pregnant woman.
Exactly. So it's almost like religion, or if you like, Christianity, has become a nuisance, something that is supposed to build people up. I mean, if you read the theology of prophecy from what Paul says, to encourage, to comfort, to strengthen, why should it be a source of a nuisance to the public? And so I think that the IJP and its men and women should not allow themselves to be cowed by these threats. In any case, more than half of the people who call themselves prophets, I don't consider them to be genuine. All you have to do is to interrogate what they do in the light of biblical teaching and realize that a lot of them are just doing it either for commercial purposes, economic reasons. Of course, that is not to deny that the prophetic is genuine. But what I'm saying, that even in the Old Testament, the New Testament, there were cases in which prophets had to be chastised, prophesying what the kings want to hear. I'm surprised that the politicians have taken these people on board because they tell them what they want to hear. So we all have a role to play in dealing with this, what has become a menace as far as this prophetic thing is concerned.
How do you begin to think about it, that some of these people are candidates for prosecution? They are doing God's work for as far as they are concerned.
Yes, but if the law must be applied, it must be applied without regard to whatever anybody claims to be. Because unless you begin to take those actions, people are going to take the state for granted. So the law must be applied. It doesn't matter whether the person is claiming to be a representation of God or may have heard from the Holy Spirit and so on. Sometimes people can prophesy for self-serving reasons. And we have seen a lot of them. They want political space. They want economic favors from people in high office. About 3 years ago, there was a prophet. There's a prophet in this country. I won't mention his name. People know him. He caused to be published the fact that 2 very significant figures in this country were going to lose their lives. This was the end of the year. Incidentally, both figures are members of my congregation. I had to do damage control by telling them not to be afraid, nothing will happen. 3 years down the line, they are both around. But I would have loved for such a person to be interrogated at the police station as to why he publicly declares death on people. I have a friend who's a professor of theology in Germany. And I went to visit him once, and he says to me, come and talk to your people. Which people was he talking about? A Ghanaian church in a German city. You have traveled out of this country. Things are not going well. You are not documented. And you stay in Germany and fire the blood of Christ and the fire from heaven to kill your mother and your grandmother in Ghana. And so this professor called me and says, go and talk to them because it's against German law to wish somebody dead verbally. So these things go on, and as I'm saying, I think the law must be made to take it course. 2 or 3 people are dealt with. They are
now tell me, how will you say, because you train men of God, how will you say?
Not all of them come here.
Yeah, I know. How will you say they should go about this manifestation? Because as we understand, the Holy Spirit will arrest you and you are not in control of yourself. How should they go about it so that they don't get into trouble? What you said about not wishing someone death, well, Ace doesn't share the view with me, but in our law, it says that if you issued a threat of harm to somebody and the person apprehended became afraid because of the threat you issued, you are guilty and could suffer 3 years in jail. If you spoke about death to me and I became afraid by virtue of what you have said, just by that, you could go to jail for 10 years. How do they avoid this situation, knowing that they have become aware that the police is going to crack the whip?
Now, when we talk about, say, theology, for example, a place like this is a theological institution, we usually will tell the fundamentals of theology. One of the fundamentals of theology is what we call the sources of theology, and we normally identify 4 sources of theology. They are scripture, tradition, experience, and reason. The last one, which is reason, the other name for it is common sense. And so, whether you are interpreting scripture or prophesying, the spirit is never out of control. And so you must apply common sense. And if you are a prophet and you can't apply common sense, the reason why the scripture says we are created in the image of God is because God is a rational being. And so we have some rational sense within us that we must apply in the execution of our duties in whatever gift that God has given us. So my thing is, a prophet that does not apply common sense is not worth seeing in the first place. And why should we even allow our lives to be controlled and dominated by people who claim a prophetic gift or a prophetic ability? There was one business owner who was completely living in panic because somebody just walked into the shop and said to this woman, I have seen a vision of your family carrying a coffin, and it seems to me the one in the coffin is you. And do you know what the condition was for praying for this woman? She asked for $1,000. Out of panic, the woman paid.
Extortion.
Somehow,
It says that's a criminal offense of extortion.
exactly. So she came back for more money, and I just happened to be around. And then I said to her, if you don't bring the first $1,000, I will cause you to be arrested. And then she brought it back. So fleecing the flock by instilling fear into them. And it seems to me that in a church context in which religion has become competitive, when anything becomes competitive, it is commercialized. When it is commercialized, people use underhand way.
Okay. I'll go to Sheikh. I'll go to Sheikh, and then we'll take a break. When we return, I'll ask you again what you think should be done at your level of leadership. There are various, organizations for Christian churches that come together. So, Reverend Professor Kwabena Asamoah Jedu, when I return, I would like you to address that. How do you use such platforms to try to resolve these things? But Sheikh Armiao, these issues, does it come to you that our priests, our imams, in all the other religions, and also in Islam, it's simply a question of lack of awareness, or what?
Thank you very much. I think
your link just froze a bit. I'm hoping that we can get you restored immediately so that we can hear you. Okay, so we'll be right back. Please stay with us. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And we can see that very many of you are really enjoying the show. My guests are ACP Kwesi Ofori. He is Acting Director General of Public Affairs, Ghana Police Service. Ace Anan Ankomah is a lawyer. Sheikh Armiao Shaibu, a spokesperson, National Chief Imam, and Acting Chairman of CODEO. And Reverend Professor J. Kwabena Asamoah Jedu is Minister, Methodist Church, Ghana, and President, Trinity Theological Seminary, Legon. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Lexus Bill, host of Drive Time on Joy 99.7 FM. Listen, you don't have to worry if you miss Drive Time or Personality Profile. It's going to be live on our podcast page. Just log on to www.myjoyonline.com/podcast. You can listen to Drive Time, Personality Profile, and any other of your favorite shows on Joy FM on that page. You don't have to miss a show at all. Joy 99.7 FM, radio for discerning listeners.
stories. That's what we tell each other every day. At Joy News, we tell your story. You have a story the world should know about? Tell it to Joy News. We are your home of bold, credible, and fearless journalism. I am Emefa Apau.
You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's our special edition asking how you can help the police to sustain this zeal, positive energy to continue to enforce law and order, to bring sanity in our communities. My guest, Reverend Professor J. Kwabena Asamoah Jedu, is Minister, Methodist Church, Ghana, and President, Trinity Theological Seminary, Legon. Sheikh Arimiao Shaibu, a spokesperson for National Chief Imam and Acting Chairman of CODEO, Coalition of Election Observers. Ace Ankomah is a lawyer, and ACP Kwesi Ofori is Acting Director General of Public Affairs, Ghana Police Service. So they threatened Ace that they will arrest him into the studio if he didn't come, and that's why he's here. Now, Sheikh, thankfully we have your line back. Can we hear your presentation? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, what I was saying is, they can do with religious diversity. So many things can happen, and people with nefarious intentions can exploit, especially in an environment where we have large percentage of our population that are desperate, that feel helpless about a certain situation. That makes them so vulnerable, and in that vulnerability, those religious people with nefarious intentions can really exploit them. And that is why, even though they do some of these things, we still have their churches well populated. And sometimes one cannot understand, how can a woman lie down for a pastor or so to put his foot on her tummy? And the tummy, she's a pregnant woman. And not just placing his foot on her tummy, but he presses on it so that the baby in the distance will also be injured. And yet she laid down. That is the situation we find ourselves. Secondly, the desperation, economic situation, the get-rich syndrome. And we see huge billboards. And some of them have found their way on television screens. And they give assurances of conditions that will make you rich by the day.
Okay, Sheikh's, Zoom is frozen again, but we certainly work it and hear him again. I'm bringing Kwesi Ofori in and to ask why this interest. They are meeting sections of the society. He says they will meet with civil society organizations, they will meet with various others, they will meet with media. Why the interest in religious leaders of religion? Why that interest?
One thing is the police administration is very much aware of the religious freedoms or freedoms granted to faith organizations and institutions. And we are also very much aware of the laws of the land. And of late, as we've seen, there are a lot of infractions as enumerated by Mr. Ankomah. For instance, churches located in residential areas, people making noise over amplifying their voices and musical equipment, making people restless in the night. And it is the responsibility of the police to make sure that such infractions are put to a stop. And this is what the
How
police...
about the city engineers and all of them? Because every place has a zoning policy.
Yes, the
policy either says this is residential, or it is commercial, or it is mixed residential commercial. Yes. Why do you allow them to build a church in a residential area?
The heart of a community. For instance, I was in Kigali. In Kigali, churches have their area, hotels. No, it has been properly planned. Without such infractions among others. But here we are. The city authorities need to do more across the country. They need, not to allow the landowners, land dealers, to demarcate and plan our cities. It is time we give a better planning. But all that the police is saying is we've also seen that prophecy, through prophecy, it creates a lot of fear and alarm. Others also call it panic. And it's been going on. And one thing is, for them to go out publicly, create that sense of insecurity. Therefore, that meeting, as you questioned, was to bring men of faith together with great assistance from Mr. Ankomah and your good self, to see how best we can bring the two institutions together, create that understanding, that commonality of purpose, to enable us move on. And by so doing, we believe that this conversation is now going far.
Okay.
Across, even beyond the Muslim Christian faith.
Okay.
And it's good for our society.
Right.
And all that the Inspector General of Police and members of the police administration want is to make sure that authority of the law or the spirit and letter of our laws prevail. And this is what we are doing. It is not a question of not trying to chastise, religious institutions or targeting religious leaders, among others.
Right.
They should know. For instance, we know of some of them, they run it 24 hours in community residential areas. And when people complain, they are labeled as witches, wizards, among others. But we are in a country full of laws, and we'll make sure that...
And these laws were made in 1960.
1960. Some were even before 1960. And this is what we are doing. So we just wanted to sanitize our communities and country in
as
general.
Ace spoke about, gave the example of, saying there'll be an earthquake and the rest, which, if it caused fear and panic in the public, by the law, the maximum is 3 years.
Yeah.
But is it in 2008 that we did the Electronic Communications Act, and they are doing this on TV and broadcasting.
Now we've gone electronic. So guess what? If the message gets on your Facebook Live, your YouTube, then you go to jail for up to 5 years. So if you do it in your hall, that is a misdemeanor, up to 3 years. If you elevate it to the internet, that could take you to 5 years.
We heard not too long ago when the pandemic, set in, is it Pastor Chris? The UK, he was fined for giving information that was false and that sought to impede the delivery of medical services.
Trust you, we have that law here. That law says that a person who by means of electronic communication service knowingly sends a communication which is false or misleading, doesn't have to be for now misleading, and likely to prejudice the efficiency of life-saving service or to endanger the safety of any person. So if you get online with that Pastor Chris kind of message, you could go to jail for up to 5 years. Guys, I'm just presenting the law to you. Avoid this.
I think that is section 76 of the
76 of the Electronic Communication Act. So if you take that same harm and danger prophecy and you add to it your anti-vaccine things, you could, to the extent that the communication is false or misleading, or likely to prejudice the efficiency of life-saving service, or to endanger the safety of any person, ship, aircraft, vessel, commits an offense, you could go for 3,000 penalty units, or term of imprisonment of up to 5 years, or both.
That's like 36,000 Ghana cedis.
Yes, but nobody will look at that. The jail term, up to 5 years.
So all that we are saying is that the police is not anti-Christ institution. It is not anti-God institution. but it just to make sure that the laws of the Republic of Ghana plays a center stage in our operations, and we'll make sure that we implement it, and those found culpable will be dealt with according to law.
Yeah. Right. Now, I see Ace was taking note of a few things, but some of the comments that have come in, this one says, University of Newsfile, full of education. It is time to regulate churches. That's the only way to stop false prophecy and charlatans parading themselves as pastors. It is done everywhere in the civilized world. We have identified the problem. Let's go ahead and deal with it decisively. There are similar such messages I'll read to you.
Has he been to America? Well, look. So, thanks, Chief. You see, the issue about citing of churches, it's very simple. If your church is cited in a well, there ought to be zoning. There are zoning issues, zoning laws, where you can situate what. If you're in a residential area and you want me to come and play my guitar with the overdrive, then build a theater that keeps the sound in there. Then you can make as much noise as you want to make within the confines of your theater, and nobody's going to be. But it's open air, and you say, "Hey, come and give me a solo." Me too. When the thing comes, and I step on that pedal, and the thing has come, I'm tearing my ears and everybody's ears. We should all learn from this. I am learning. I mean, I'm not keeping myself out. But it's interesting about zoning laws. They are actually zoning for religious groupings too. If you've been to Sakumono, there's a place where all the churches are next door to each other.
That's right.
Away from everybody.
That's right.
But it's very interesting when one church starts disturbing the other. Because their churches are so close, if they have praise and worship at the same time, one's praise will eat into the other's worship. Or one's prayer will eat into the other. And sometimes when I've been in those churches, it's been very interesting. But I think then they found accommodation for each other. Yeah. So you praise and then I praise and then praise and maybe sometimes you listen to a sermon in one and one's praise is coming into the church room. So that we can zone in such a way that we put our noise making at one side of the zoning, then we have to regulate ourselves on where that is concerned. Now, I am gradually being convinced on your thing that the prophecy of harm could be threat. You see, because it says that if you issue the communication with the intention that it will cause fear to the person. Now, intention is not only direct, it can be oblique. Okay. In fact, a person is deemed to intend the probable and natural consequences of his act. Right. So if I come to you with death, and everybody's afraid of death, then I could be deemed to have intended the natural and probable consequence of my act. But that then takes us into a whole realm, because threat of death is a second-degree felony. 10 years. Ladies and gentlemen, nobody's saying don't prophesy, Mr. Prophet, Madam Prophetess. All they are saying is, be careful how you communicate it. Look, isn't it the same script that says the spirit of the subject is subject to the spirit of the prophet is subject to the prophet? That's right. So anything that you are so overcome with the message you can't keep it is untrue. Because if we test, line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, we'll find that you should be able to control it. Nobody's saying do not prophesy, but just be more careful in your communication of it. All right. And the thing about assault in churches, if the person comes to your church, that does not mean you should give the person a cement block to carry and run around. You see, when we get to the law of assault and battery, a critical element is lack of consent. So if I consent that you can punch me and you punch me, it is not assault, it's not battery. But remember that consent, as regulated by Section 14, can be voided. So that if the person exercises a certain level of duress over you and you consent to it, your consent is negated. So the person is deemed not to have consented to it. So if I come to your church and I'm under your control and authority, your duress, your influence, and you say I should lie down, I lie down and you step on my belly, my consent for you to step on my belly is removed by law. So it is assault with battery. That is where you see that I'm hitting you and I actually hit you. Assault without battery is what we will call on the street inshabo body. Hey, I didn't really hit you, but I put you in fear of immediate unpermitted contact with your person. That is also a crime. Okay. And then the imprisonment, the prayer comes. When they bring the witches, you tie them up. It's assault with imprisonment. You could go to jail for all of that. So we are not saying do not do your work. Be careful how quickly you touch people. So we've seen videos. The man of God is sitting on somebody's head. The man of God should be making a beeline to jail. It's like Monopoly, go straight to jail. If you pass go, don't take 200. So there's law. And we must regulate ourselves, especially those who are leading in the spiritual set. So nobody is here to issue threats to anyone.
Okay.
All we are saying that there are all of these laws in this secular state which are not directed at you. If the law catches you, the fact that you are a pastor will not stop you. Will not stop the law from coming to you. And you can exercise your religious rights recognized under the Constitution, but subject to these limitations. Let's respect the limitations. That is all.
So I'll return to you finally on the question of regulation. What's really a church? We may be able to get something small about that. We are hoping that Sheikh's line is clear now. This one says that prophecy is thriving in Ghana because we either find ourselves in hopelessness or want to hold on to fame and power at all costs. Prophecy will tell you what you want to hear, Ampa. As a potential entrepreneur, I'm even looking out for an opportunity in the sector. Okay, that's Kofi Amwa. Peter Entry says exactly my point. Who is in charge of citing of churches, institutions should work? And then Jojo Kote says that God bless me and all of us with the alacrity, dexterity, and advocacy of Ace Ankomah. Gifty Ando Appear. Hey Gifty, how are you? Says apparently if you shot somebody body, it is an offense in Ghana's constitution. Okay, so we are not talking about the constitution, we are talking about the criminal laws. Einstein's quote, and this is from Adwinyansa. That's your name? It says, some folks have absolutely no regard for the peace of mind of others. Then Ikeda Eshen says, what if I do SETI on April Fool's Day? That is April Fool prank. Theo Echampong.
I haven't seen that as a defense in law yet.
Right. Dr. Theo Echampong, once he gets the effect the law says you shouldn't get, then you are in trouble. Sorry, Dr. Theo Echampong says, fantastic insights by Ace Ankomah on revelations about Ghana's laws and religion. And then this one says, how do we call the Holy Ghost in evidence? Argues Ace. All right, so that's still a champon. Clement Yabua says, please, my question with regards to the noise making is, what are the measures put in place by the Ghana Police Service to deal with government officials who blow sirens just to pave the way for themselves during traffic and other situations? Well, if you heard earlier, he says that they are actually going after a number of them who have been caught on their cameras this week. All right.
Actually, they have. They are just not publishing it.
Okay.
But some big man has been busted and fined for using a siren when he wasn't supposed to use it.
Right.
It's going on now.
Leila says, another classic episode of Newsfile. Ace is in town. Great show. Thank you, Leila. And got more of your messages, but let's get to Sheikh. Unfortunately, his line has been disappointing us a bit. But Sheikh, let's hope. I was going to say a prophecy over that Zoom. Let's hear you. Let's continue.
Yeah, I mean, one area of breach, which I think necessitates the law to sanitize the way religion is given expression in our social circumstance. If you take the Muslim community, one area that I consider is you'll find, for example, in Ramadan, two small mosques that are opposite to each other across a street. And both of them have powerful loudspeakers. set opposite each other. And then in the midnight, when we are keeping night vigil, all of them, the imams will be reading at higher tones and will be crossing each other. But what is my worry is that, especially if the area is also populated by non-Muslims, these non-Muslims have got the right to have their rest in the night. They are not Muslims. And yet you will find the loud recitations now will deprive them of the right to have rest. Okay. I think that, like Ace said, the common sense for me is the most important here. And to keep the loudspeakers in moderation, there is an acceptable standard decibels, which will not bring harm to anybody. It's one of the areas that I wish that certain regulation can be made. And then finally, during Ramadan, when we are doing our preaching, I think that it's important that we draw attention to sometimes the tendency to also preach hate or to be excessive in the emotions that we spew out as a result of our preaching. This is also an important thing that we have to bring our minds to, such that we all cooperate with the police to ensure that we bring sanity. Anything less than this will mean that even as we are given the freedom to express our religion, will give rise to some confusion which we do not want in our society. So I want to call on the police to go ahead and do their work, maintain their professional ethics, go ahead with the consultations with stakeholders, and let's all be on the same page so that we can have a better understanding of the law and how it works, and that the law will not be used. Let me end up by saying, with the prophecies, Samson, assuming I am a Muslim, I come to say that I slept in the night, but I had a vision that God has spoken to me that I must topple the government. What would the law say about that? That will be an infringement and subversive to the law of our country. In this particular case, the law will have to take its own course. Like any other statement that is injurious to our social harmony, what we want to do because we think that a certain higher authority has inspired into us a certain prophecy. I like the point that was made that let's use common sense even in matters of giving interpretations to what we think is a prophecy. Anything less than this will give rise to confusion, which we should not allow.
Thank you so very much. Kaba Nelson says that he tweets that I have been listening to this show for the past 10 years, and for the first time, my soul is satisfied in today's show beyond recognition. Thank you very much, Kaba Nelson. And I was coming to you to finish up and the questioning of the regulation, but there have been some suggestion by some people that Section 137 of the Criminal Other Offences Act, the publication in a journal or newspaper or an advertisement of a notice relating to fortune telling, palmistry, astrology, or the use of any subtle craft, means or device by which it is sought to deceive or impose on a member of the public, or which is circulated or is likely to deceive or impose on a member of the public is illegal, and this is punished by our law. That can't we amend this and then specifically bring in prophecy? And I say, will that pass constitutional muster?
It's almost there. This is what they call the charlatanic adverts in newspapers, right?
Yes.
So you should see the context in which this comes. Right. So look at this as the juju and tricks equivalent of fake prophecy.
Okay.
So the law covers all of them. It covers the false prophecy on 208. It will take you to the Electronic Communications Act, and this is the juju equivalent. Where you publish these things. Okay. Charlatanic advertisement. Right. That certainly gets you into jail as well.
All right. Yes, so what do we do? Regulation?
Look, we don't need any other regulation. There's sufficient law in Ghana which is not targeted at churches per se, but it applies to churches, and we regulate a lot of these things. Churches may be one or two things, an incorporated trust or a guarantee company. Trust comes from trust law. It's simply this, that the owner of property has given the property to you to hold for the benefit of another person. That's the most basic definition. There are various other definitions. So if you are a head of a church, you are in a trust situation, the property of the church belongs to the church and not you.
Really?
No, it's not yours. Get this right. This is law. It is not yours. You are in a trust situation, especially if you have incorporated this as a trust. And then, if you have incorporated as a guarantee company, there are 4 key ingredients of a guarantee company. No shares, no profit making, no dividend or distribution or return of assets. So the church cannot buy a car and dash it to the man of God. It happened in London. He had to refund. Yes. The church cannot buy a vehicle and give it as a gift to the man of God. It has distributed an asset to a member. It is against the law. It must be refunded. And when it happened in London, the Charities Commission took over the running of the church and made sure that every pound that had been paid in breach of the law was refunded. Oh, and this is the further part. If you are a director of a guarantee company, you cannot hold a salaried or fee receiving office. If you are a director of a guarantee company, you cannot earn any money, which then means that the head pastor, senior pastor, founder, Pope, Archbishop, Cardinal, Bishop, everybody, you cannot be on your board if you earn a salary from the church. So you must have, in fact, you must have a board that is independent of you, which will then hire you and can fire you.
Fire me? Who said the church?
Absolutely. The law says that, but you are just a member of the church. The directors take the decisions, and you can't serve. If you want to serve on the directorship, then you don't earn a salary.
This is Ghana law.
Ghana law. Our companies this has been there since 1963. We just cleaned it up in 2019. Gawa wrote this for us in 1963. We are just scared to implement it. But the law is that if you are a member of it, if you are on the directorship of a guarantee company, which a lot of these churches are, you cannot earn an income. Except under certain circumstances.
Time just ran out on us. And I can give Reverend Professor Kwabena Samuel Jedu just some 30 seconds. What should the groupings under which these churches come, what can they do?
Well, thank you very much. What I take from is Ankomah's submissions over the period is that a lot of the leaders and ecumenical bodies, as we call them, are ignorance of the law. And of course, that's not an excuse, as we say. So perhaps the place to begin is to make sure that religious bodies and organizations take the law seriously. And of course, self-regulation, I think, is usually the best. I would suggest that the ecumenical bodies, whether Christian Council of Ghana, National Association of Christian Charismatic Churches, JPCC, all of them, take the law seriously and get the various leaders to teach their people what the law is, so that we don't infringe them.
Thank you so very much. I'm very sorry, but time just ran out on us. My guests have been ACP Kwesi Ofori, who is Acting Director General of Public Affairs, Ghana Police Service. They are coming for you. My friend Koe Suman says, I think the IGP should be sending prophecy police to church services and prophetic sessions to record them. That would be disaster. Is Anna Ankomah is lawyer, and we can't thank you enough for what you have taken us through today. Sheikh Arimiao Shaibu, spokesperson, National Chief Imam, and Acting Chairman of Kodeo, and Reverend Professor J. Kwabena Asamoah Jedu is Minister, Methodist Church, Ghana, and President, Trinity Theological Seminary, Legon. I'm Samson Ladia Yanini. Thank you so very much for your time.